Stephen, I have a question. You deal with all kinds of clients, as we know, business executives, entrepreneurs, entertainers, athletes, both young and old. What are the biggest challenges students, young athletes, face today?
Well, athletes, as well as just students and young people that are in the arts, the biggest challenge is their focus, to stay focused. We've got so much distraction, so much pressure since the pandemic. A lot of kids, are suffering anxiety at different levels. Suicide rates are up. And so the biggest challenge is for them to learn how to regulate their emotions, how to cultivate positive emotions, and how to regulate negative ones. So basically regulating their nervous system. As we learn and as our brain is developing, if we can put the patterns down to how to regulate our emotions, we have a lifetime skill. And it's super important while the brain is developing. And so, ultimately with social media, phones, technology, the pressure, this 24/7 connection, the biggest challenge for kids today is to regulate their emotions and the ability to stay focused.
Because that leads to greater performance. It leads to greater satisfaction. What are the? Can you give me an example of the need, for example, a baseball player? Is it when a coach is yelling or a parent is saying something, or when they're at the plate and there's?
Yeah, so baseball, football, basketball, doesn't matter what the sport is. The more present you are, this is a foundational quote that I use, the more present you are, the higher you perform. Why is that true? We have all our resources. We have all our cognitive functions. We can see, hear, and feel everything, right? So we have our full toolbox, right? We get into a phone. Now we don't see the peripheral. Now we don't see what. So, having the ability to be there in the moment allows us to be and bring our best self. More distraction, less self, less performance. It's very simple. The concept is not really coached a lot. We talk about it. My whole A-game system is based on, to begin with, being where your feet are. Then have the ability to regulate your emotions, and then a host of other things, how to receive feedback, how to be optimistic, how to set goals, many, many things, how to identify your own personal A-game. Ultimately, it comes down to those things, cultivating positive emotions and regulating negative ones.
When I was younger, I don't remember parents being as involved in an athlete's life. There were some examples of that, of course, as they are today. It seems like parents are very much involved in this. What are the biggest challenges for parents in dealing with their young athlete?
Well, there's lots of challenges. The main ones are this, is that, most parents have very, very high expectations for their kids, which is awesome. We want the best. We've got to kind of temper that and look at, the ages and stages our kids are at. My philosophy is in those early days, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, kind of before puberty, we really want to focus on effort. Results are important, but we have so many different levels of development on a team. You go out and watch a 7-year-old baseball team, boys or girls, you'll see somebody this tall, and then you'll see somebody this tall.
Right.
Physical development's different. So we want to develop the sportsman's skills, self-regulation skills, and effort skills. And there's a big focus on results and competitiveness, which we want. We definitely want that. And so there's a lot of pressure today for our kids to perform. A lot of times parents are, living through their kids. They may know it or not know it. No judgment on that. They want the best. And there is a balance. The kids that I work with are on, couple travel teams. The kids are the center of the family now, and everything is about them. We want to support our kids, but we also want to balance.
And what do you tell a parent who you perceive to be, shall we say, overly involved or overly demanding, or have too high expectations of their kid who is at an age when maybe they need support rather than demand?
First, I want to educate them on, I ask them, why do you have your son or daughter playing sports?
That's a basic question.
Yeah, that no one really sits down. They may intrinsically know it. Most people couldn't articulate it, right? Why? When I take on one-on-one clients, they start at basically 12 all the way through the pro ranks. When I talk to parents, when they sign up, because it's an investment to work with me, is my job is to help your son or daughter be the best human being they can be. All the skills that I'm teaching are life skills and can affect the performance on the field, the pool.
So not necessarily the best athlete, but the best person they can be.
Right. And so if I'm working with somebody just that wants to be the best student, they're in the arts, it's all the same. So it's sports, academics, arts. And, it's very important because I'm going to do some coaching with them, how to create that environment. But it's getting them and setting them expectations on how we're developing that young boy or young girl, whatever age group they're in, that we're developing patterns of behavior for life. To have the best optimistic, confident, resilient life, be able to be self-compassionate, mindful, all the great skills you will want as a great human being, right? Because when parents come to me for their athlete, it's going to help them academically, it's going to help them socially, but it's getting them the perspective of, hey, where's their body and mind developed yet? Mm-hmm. Perhaps they're not physically as developed as other people. We got to put that in perspective, and that we want to have sport to be fun. Now, we want to win. Make it fun. I mean, there's kids that are like, in these camps and that travel team, and they're 8. I mean, it's very hard when you have that much, intensity to have fun, and kids get burned out.
Yeah, it's tantamount to, in my business of casting and video, they used to call them stage door parents, where they were living their life and really revolving the entire family around taking their kid to castings. And the inevitable disappointment that comes with that.
Sure.
You book some jobs, and a lot you don't.
Sure.
And it must be similar in what you're talking about, and how the parent must deal with that, and how the kid has to deal with that.
So the other part of this is teaching parents to regulate themselves. So, my A-game coaching for athletes, when I work with coaches and parents, the tools are very similar. The context is different. If I'm teaching a parent to regulate their emotions, sitting in the stands might be very similar to their son or daughter regulating their emotion when they're up to hit.
Because the kid feels that pressure.
Of course.
That intensity from the
So
parent.
I'm teaching parents to regulate emotions just like their athletes or their students or their children in the arts. And going back, Mike, to their why. So did you want your son or daughter to participate in the sport to be an all-star and not really a functioning, contributing human being in the world? Of course they're going to say no. No one's going, oh yeah. But really get to reset why they want to support their kid. That changes the foundation.
So when they come to you and they say, or at least imply, I want my kid to hit 350 or to be the number one wide receiver choice on the high school football team, let's say, and you're saying, I'd like to make them a better person. Is there a disconnect there?
Well, Mike, it's not an either-or conversation.
Okay.
But the conversation is, we're going to build skills that will give your son or daughter the opportunity to be that. But if we're focusing just on number one wide receiver and its skills and drills, and we're missing the mental part. And the mental part, my mission, I'm sure we'll get to it, is to create this A-game training. It's just a standard training you would do like math or spelling. A lot of kids come to me, quote unquote, when their confidence is down or, things aren't quote unquote at the level they want them to be. I want this to be it should be a regular training. It's like you brush your teeth. Oh, how do I regulate negative emotions? What do I do when I have an upset? Life skills. Mm-hmm. And we need to help our kids with this because they're struggling, especially after the pandemic. These kids are struggling.
What happened? What do you perceive has happened since or after or during, for that matter, the pandemic? What changed with kids?
First of all, our kids suffered a high level of stress just from parenting, the change of environment, this sickness, people dying.
School being different.
Not around your kids. So the regular brain maturation of socialization around being other kids, I think they said a year or two got reduced. So these regular social networks in the brain not developed. They're just with friendships not around. Okay, the sports they played just stopped. So we have like this natural maturation that just went like this and like this. So now more than ever, we got to get those tools in their hands. I always do this little exercise. I say, so how do you get rid of a negative thought? I'll ask parents, and my grounding technique where you think about it, you breathe through your feet.
Right.
We get some space into the brain. How does your son or daughter recover from a bad experience? And I ask them, how do you do it? These skills are the same skills for parents.
Mm-hmm.
Not many people have answers unless they've had some training.
No.
I want this to be a life skill where if I'm playing sports, taking a test, I'm out socially, I'm in the world, I've got tools. Mm-hmm. And I tell parents, if your son or daughter works with me, for a period of time, they will have multiple tools for any situation they face.
In life, just in general.
Life.
Okay, let's transition over to this, which I saw earlier today. I just saw a study from Nexus Health that found that youth who spent the most time on digital technology exhibited higher levels of depression, anxiety, social anxiety, aggression, defiance, and bullying. What does your research in general say about the mental health of young people today, particularly athletes, and when it comes to devices?
Well, so let me give me my, my blanket statement. No device is good or bad. It's how we use it.
Okay.
So technology has got great benefits. Here's the problem with social media. It's a panacea of everything's great. You go on Instagram, no one's looking at their 5 photos and going, this is the worst photo, let me put that up, right? Then we got filters, and then filters on top of filters. So there is a constant message, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough,
yeah.
I'm not enough, I'm not good, is a constant message of that.
Everyone else is living their best life, and I'm over here.
And it's all an illusion.
Yeah.
It's all an illusion with the filter, So we've got to get this in perspective, okay? We have the highest amount of anxiety, stress, suicide, as I said earlier, than we've ever had for young people. And it's not even close. And it's not getting much better, okay? So, when we look at social media, we want to put things in perspective. I don't think we should limit social media, but I do think at certain ages, maybe 13, 14, 15, and though we start allowing that, certainly younger, it's not needed. And we don't necessarily take it away. We create other activities for engagement, right? Social media, tech, we're in the tech world. We're not in a synchronous relationship in time, reading the emotions of people, dealing with conflict, dealing with great activities. So we want to have environments, sports is one of them, where we're interacting with people in real time. Acting, the arts, singing, filmmaking, where we're interacting with people, being in nature. Yeah. So we do want to put some limitations, I think, on our tech use and social media. And just as important, we're creating an environment for our young people to interact with other young people, to have normal conflict, to have resolution, to have what they call Hyatt's book, The Anxious Generation, free-range kids, to be able to go out there and experience where, there's not guidance, safely. We need kids to develop their social networks and have the skills to regulate their emotions.
And not just social media, but social engagement in actual activities with other people,
Right.
not just through a screen.
Mirror neurons, which we found, and that's where we have the ability to have, to understand someone's emotion, have compassion, happens face to face. It doesn't happen, or it's harder to happen on the phone. It's certainly almost impossible through text messaging. So the general compassion and empathy for other human beings gets developed like you and me sitting here going, oh,
Yeah.
there's a facial expression, there's a
Yeah.
voice tone change.
Uh-huh.
We need that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a half step back. What's the best advice you can give young adults on their journey into adulthood? What do they need to keep in mind?
Yeah. So the number one thing I would say, and that's a very big question,
Yeah.
and I like it, is that what is happening today is not permanent. It's one of the big things, especially when I start with younger athletes. They think, "Gosh, I'm not confident, or I can't hit that ball, or I can't spike that ball." Whatever it is, there's a kind of a sense of permanency versus the growth mindset, because they're young, they don't know that things will change. That the most important thing you can do is be present, have fun, and keep working on your craft, your mindset, and your skill set. That things are not locked in stone. Secondly, what you're experiencing, everyone else is. One of the big things, Mike, you shot this when I did my A-game training for student athletes.
Mm-hmm.
We had a break, and I always like to do the check-in. And we went around. We had, a smaller group from, I think, 12 or 13 to in the 20s on the national women's softball, I think, or it was soccer. Yeah. And so all ages, male and female. Number one, I didn't know what I was going through. Everyone else was going through.
Yeah.
With all the technology, with all the social media, with all the mental health training, 10 kids are looking like, gosh, I'm normal. And
Yeah.
this is the message.
Yeah.
The other thing is focus on progress, not perfection. Am I making progress? See, that gives us hope.
Mm-hmm.
And that last thing that I'll say, I know you asked me one, failure or perceived failure is normal. No one ever told me that in all the years, 20 plus years of athletics. No one ever said, hey, Steve, you're going to do some stuff and failure is totally normal. It's okay. No. My message was if you failed, you were a failure. There's still a lot of kids. So having that self-compassion, being in their corner, taking care of themselves, those are, I would say, some core concepts.
What's the best advice you can give parents in order for them to support their kids, whether that be in school, athletics, overall performance? What's the best advice you can give parents?
Yeah. So my mentor, Tom Knowles, told me this, Maharishi Tom Knowles. He said, Stephen, as a parent, and he's a father to many children, he said, and he included me in this. It's parents or coaches, right? But we'll stay with the parent question. Our role as a parent is to walk with our children to help them find what they're good at and they enjoy. When we really think about it, right? Is to walk with them. Not pressure them, not force them, walk with them. We're doing research. Let's try volleyball. Let's try tennis. Let's try the arts. Let's try this academic. Let's try it. And that we can be a supportive net that can allow our kids to stretch and at times not reach their goal, have upsets, have setbacks, and that we're that net, right? But we've got to let them stretch. We've got to let them, stumble and skin their knee. And what's happening quite a bit now is parents aren't allowing that. They're really insulating the quote-unquote setbacks. That's where our grit is developed. That's where our emotional resilience is created. When we stretch and we make it, and when we stretch and we don't. I can look back at my life and the thousands of athletes I've worked with. You can look in and you go, yeah, that perceived failure, that's where I learned. Yeah, do we learn a lot when we're great? Of course, we learn how to be great, but it's the setbacks, the unexpected that goes, oh, I've got to expand my skills and my tools. I've got to up level. I've got to A game. So I never wish for myself or my clients less obstacles. I just support them on more tools to deal with those obstacles.
Because the obstacles are going to happen regardless.
Right. And when you play bigger things are coming.
Right.
You want to play big and have a big toolbox that no matter what comes. So it's really being in the corner of our kids, and then to take on the mindset of compassion. And that a lot of times, and I was guilty of this in the past, parents will rush to try to fix something. Mm-hmm. Oh, we got to fix your swing. Or we got to fix this little interaction you have with Susie or Johnny that you're not getting. No. What we got to do is help support our kids with the tools, but also be compassionate to them, their emotions, their feelings. And that's not to focus on their feelings and not results, but it's like, wow, my son or daughter is having a hard time. Attending to them as a good friend or parent would, gosh, that must be difficult. That must feel hard for you. You can imagine that you've got a lot of emotions about that. Mm-hmm. They're normal, right? Attend to them emotionally, then move into the mechanics of, hey, let's look at how we can improve that. When we jump to fix it, we're not allowing our kids to feel. We don't neutralize and let them know it's normal, and then it's like, I shouldn't have this feeling, something's wrong with me. So we really want to be compassionate and then work on the tools and the mechanics. But we want to start with the emotional support of an upset. So that compassion, and a lot of people, Mike, think that compassion makes us weak. All the research shows more compassion, higher performance.
Wow. And allowing the kid, the parent, allowing the kid to try things and not be good at it.
That's okay. It's totally okay.
Yeah.
If all we're doing is putting our young people on a feeder system of complete success, what happens when they leave the nest?
Yeah.
And there's a failure. In their whole life, they're like, I've never dealt with a failure. That's when we have big upsets.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that going around these days. You know, one of the really interesting notions you talk about is this thing called self-compassion. And I'd like to know what it is and how does it figure into performance?
Yeah. It's the secret weapon of performance.
Okay.
Self-compassion, real simply, is being there for yourself in setbacks, upsets, perceived failures, in a way a good friend would be. Most of us beat ourselves up, hypercritical. When we beat ourselves up and we're hypercritical, we activate the sympathetic nervous system. Heart rate, respiration, we get in that stimulated. We want to activate the parasympathetic, the calming, the nurturing. That's what's going to calm our nervous system so we can actually learn. And so self-compassion and all the research is shown to increase performance in the military and sports, many more pieces of research that are coming out. And so it's training ourselves to be there in our corner when things aren't going well. Mm-hmm. And there's really 3 steps, and I've added the steps. Number 1 is being mindful, not over-attaching to what's going on and not dissociating with it. Being gentle. Okay, I'm having a difficult time. Step 2 is what we call common humanity. What I'm going through, other people are going through. This is normal. Just like I talked about in that training. Mm-hmm. That's what was happening. Oh man, everyone else experiencing that. Number 3, kind actions towards self and words. So now it's phrases like, may I be at ease, may I see the goodness in myself, may I be loved, and a variety of other phrases. Mm-hmm. And then a 4th step that I've added, I call it the performance step. After you've calmed your nervous system, you're in your corner like a good coach or friend would be. Uh-huh. The and is, okay, what did I learn? What are the new strategies, techniques I can use? And now let's get back into the game and use them.
No.
That's what I call the performance step.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's so self-compassion is, as you noted, how you would never be as critical to yourself or you would never be as critical to another as you are to yourself.
Correct.
So you need to change that dynamic, basically.
And here's the funny thing. I have a black belt in self-compassion rebuttals.
Okay.
So here's what I get often.
Yeah.
I always find this very fascinating. And I get it because I was there at one point myself, so I can feel this.
Sure.
Well, I have a higher standard for myself. I said, so you look at other people as a lower standard. And then they're looking at me like, well, no. I go, I had one coach, works with elite athletes. I said, so I want to get this straight. You're their coach, and you have a higher standard for yourself than the elite athletes you work for.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
No.
It's just old programming.
Yeah.
It's old programming. I learned about this 5 or 6 years ago. Biggest game changer for me personally. You know, years ago, I remember I was in the finals of the Golden Gloves in Chicago, heavyweight boxer. Fought a guy named Oliver McCall. I think this was my 4th amateur fight.
Oh, yeah,
Oliver McCall.
We know him.
He ended up becoming a world professional champion. And the round started off, I was doing pretty well, and then clearly the referee saw the difference in ability. I was getting hit, didn't get hurt, but I was getting punched and punched and punched. And it was definitely another level. So the ref stepped in, you know, and I appreciate that now. At the point, I was like, let me die on my sword. This is embarrassing, right? So I remember it was at the UIC Pavilion in Chicago. Big, 10,000 people there. And I remember leaving the ring and pretty much in tears. And my coach, Tom Delaney, came up to me and, I write about Tom in the Time Cleanse, one of my great mentors. And he just looked at me. He's like, why are you so upset? And I'm like, why am I upset? I just was embarrassed. He's like, you've been boxing for 6 months. You just won 3 fights to get into the finals. What an accomplishment. But see, Mike, I couldn't see that.
Right.
It was my years of conditioning.
Right.
Well,
you lost, right?
And not just that I lost, I was a loser.
Ah.
See, I couldn't separate an athletic event to my identity, which is very common, but I didn't know. And so I share that because that would haunt me, through injuries and until I really got the space and the education to understand how to take care of myself. Mm. And now, teaching this to thousands of people. It's one of my greatest joys, teaching this to young people. So that's a master skill for life.
Sure.
In any situation,
yeah.
Right? We're still going to beat ourselves up. It's not going to go away. But the majority of our internal dialogue needs to be, you're there for yourself.
Right. Let me transition back to parenting for a moment here. In my day, back before electricity.
Well, they had candles, Mike.
They had candles and horses.
See something, yeah.
We had horses and candles. Traditional parenting in my day was always a top-down thing. It was always do it because I said so.
Right.
And there wasn't a lot of questioning after that. There's a better way. What is a better way to communicate and give feedback to your kids other than because I said so?
Yeah, I experienced that too. I think pretty much anyone,
Yeah. Any old guy.
and still it happens. I think, we want to be in a place of communication, right? Why did our parents do that? Their parents did it, right? So I'm going to preface this before I give any more comments on it is that, one of the things that is going on in our culture is that I see often that parents want to be the BFFs of their kids, their best friends.
Yeah.
Right? I think this is a real problem. And when I say it, a lot of people do not like what I'm about to say. I think you should be very friendly with your kids. I don't think you should be best friends. It really muddles the role of a parent. Mm-hmm. When you're operating at the same level and your job is to protect and guide and lead your kids, it sends a very confusing message to kids. So we want some separation of church and state. Mm-hmm. This is one of the major problems because when we're quote unquote best friends, it's going to be harder to create boundaries.
Yeah.
Hold kids accountable. We don't want our kids to be upset with us. I tell every parent, if your kid does not get upset with you, no offense, you got some parenting.
Yeah.
And I'm not judging any parents because it's a tough job. And I'm not perfect at it. I don't expect anyone to be. We want upsets with our kids. We want conflicts. That's how we develop the social networks. That's how we show that we're leading. I'm going to tell you about a quick client story. So I was working with a young student athlete, 13. Parents invested in the work, did really great, then kind of stopped doing the work. And they came back to me and said, hey, she's kind of having some more anxiety. And then, talked to her and I said, hey, are you doing the tools? Stop doing the tools. Normal. So we create this new plan. Do the training. It's 2 weeks later. And this time, one of my requirements was, hey, Mom, I'd like you to monitor this and just check in. We're going to do a little meditation and some breath work, just a couple minutes a day, some mind tools. She said, yeah, when I sit with her and, she doesn't want to do it and she tells me she doesn't want to do it. And I go, well, what do you do?
Right.
Well, I don't want to get in this big fight. And I said, totally get it. Totally get it. I'm not telling you how to parent. I said, her obstinance and her grit not to do it is creating a pattern. And the pattern is this. She's in charge.
Yeah.
Now, there's lots of ways to get kids to do things. But I said, here's what I'd like you to tell your daughter. I want you to just, in a calm voice, say, listen, my job is your mother to protect you, to guide you, and to make sure you have the tools to be a great human being. That's my job. Mm-hmm. There's going to be times in my job you are not going to like what I'm asking you to do. I totally get it.
Right.
My job is to help you develop to be the best self-sufficient human being you can be, contributing to your dreams in the world. She looked at me and she said, I can do that? Now, I'm not judging her.
And that was a question, not a statement. Not I can do that.
No, it was like, I could say that to her? Now, this is so common.
Yeah.
And so I get it. I'm like, yeah, you can. Yeah, and guess what? It could be a little bit of a challenging conversation. And she could say, I'm not doing it.
Right.
Then you can say, hey, this car's not moving until we meditate for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Or, no problem. Don't do it. But guess what? There's requirements on our family.
Yeah.
There's certain requirements. If you're choosing, got every right not to do it, there's going to be some consequence to that. Mm-hmm. Just like you need to go to school every day and brush your teeth and take a shower, this is a requirement. Now, this is for this family, right? And so we did get it back on track. And now we do have accountability. Mm-hmm. And there has been a little ruffled feathers conversation. And I'm in charge of your safety and well-being.
Yeah.
And so, I want to empower parents not to be, a general with no feedback. Hey, how are you feeling about this?
A dictator. A lot of parents
feel
like they're going to be a dictator.
We want communication, but we don't want to muddy the roles. I'm parent, leading, protecting, guiding you. Want your feedback, and there's going to be some things you are not going to want to do, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. That's okay.
Yeah. When I talk to parents, I find that same thing, and they're almost surprised to hear me say, "Who's in charge here?" Mm-hmm. And secondarily, do you believe your child knows better than you
100%.
how they can be safe and prepared and protected and provided for?
Yeah, Mike. To that point, their children want to see them go, no.
Right. They want standards and guidance.
They want to know, because every kid's going to push the envelope.
Structure.
Right. But when they push the envelope and you fold, you're putting them in the wrong position. Now they're like, in one part they're going, oh, I like this. The other part they're going, I'm a kid.
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
So good outcome for this family because they listened.
Well, good. Okay, a couple more things here. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. The foundation, really, of your work, I've heard you say, is based on the quote, the more present you are, the higher you perform. I would just love to get just a capsulization of what that means.
Real simple. When your feet are where you're at and you're fully engaged, you have all your resources, your creativity, your cognitive function, your physical function, your ability to react, the ability to read an environment. And so if we want to be at our best academically, athletically, in the arts, as a human being, we've got to have all our resources. And, being on your phone, looking at a text message, trying to have a conversation or engage is not doing that. I think I said earlier in one of the episodes, is like, could you imagine if you watched an NFL game and number 83 just like he's signed in as a tight end and he has his phone out. It's 3rd and 5. Looks like he's scrolling on Instagram, and the ball snapped. I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, but
that's what we're
we
doing.
do that all the time.
And by the way, we're doing it in even more dangerous situations. I see people every day, thousands of pound cars, texting.
Driving.
That's way more dangerous than NFL.
Yeah.
But we just get hypnotized. I get it. We want to wake up from the hypnosis and understand. Be single focused in the moment, and man, every part of our lives gets better.
So what I'd like to do at this point, Stephen, is give you a statement and have you give some context for each of these concepts and why they're important. For example, number 1, the ability to be present.
Yeah, it's the master skill. It's my whole A-game process. If I'm working with junior athletes, professional athletes, executives, doesn't matter. The more present you are, the higher you perform. It's that simple. More creativity, cognitive function, physical function, reactivity, you name it, being present elevates all of that. And when you have focused presence and then you're monitoring your progress and trying to expand your ability at a skill, that's where you rapidly learn and increase your performance.
Number 2, I'd like you to comment on this statement, consistently being confident. What does that mean?
So one of the biggest things when, a young person comes to me is their confidence. I mean, it's normal. We're developing, we're learning. And so confidence comes down into a couple things. Number 1 is practicing your craft, knowing you're competent in your craft. Like, that's really important. Sometimes past performance, depending on where you're at in your development, also leads to confidence. But the number 1 thing that most people don't think about is where confidence comes from in the moment. And it's real simple. It's what you tell yourself. You see, our internal dialogue is driving emotions, right? And so if we're playing basketball and we just miss the last 3 shots, your past performance, probably not great for confidence, right? And knowing that you've practiced, that you can do this, and I got this, I know what to do. That's that internal dialogue of confidence versus, oh, I just missed that. I hope it doesn't happen again. Can I do this? Am I good? So it's practicing that internal dialogue. But in the moment, the biggest thing for confidence is, what are you telling yourself?
Interesting. So you have control over that.
100%. And it takes practice, and it's easy to do.
Because you get distracted, you remember a slight or an insult from the past, and it all kind of wears on you.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3, I'd like you to comment on the importance of having an optimistic mindset.
Yeah, so this is another one that's real easy to control. These are all very controllable. Are you looking, from a growth mindset and what's possible or what is good, right? Looking for the success, not focusing on the challenges, back to the self-compassion. So optimistic mindset with self-compassion is very powerful. When we have a setback, we're there for ourselves, and we move back into the hope and possibility. But we're looking at what's going well with realistic goggles on, not making it up. That gives us more hope, more motivation, more inspiration. So having that optimism, and optimism is an emotion that has contagion. Contagion.
And you always say, or I've heard you say, how you look at things changes what you're looking at.
Yeah, Wayne Dyer, one of my early mentors, when you change the way you look at things, what you look at changes, right? Where it says, oh, I made a mistake. Oh, I'm learning to get it correct. Now, listen, we're not robots. We'll fall into that, but ultimately we want to look at, when we finish our practice or game, whatever it may be, what went well? Okay, where could be some other areas that I can improve on? But we start with what? Optimistic. What went well? Growth mindset. Wherever I'm at, I have the ability to change. That's very important.
And to progress, and not just the end result, but progress being something you want to note.
Right, and the journey, the fruit of the journey is the actual journey. The bonus is the win. That's the bonus.
Right.
We've got it backwards.
That's true. Very true. Okay, fourth, you got to know your why or your purpose. Yeah,
the why is like the hard drive. It's, I have an athlete recently after the season. He came, a professional athlete. He said, I want you to help me to reconnect with my why. I did when we first started, but he's advancing in his career. He's made a lot of money. Doesn't have to do it anymore. And he said to me, hey, I want to get more connected to my why. So when I'm showing up, when I quote unquote financially don't need to do it anymore, the why is the powerhouse, the emotional center. I always say, when we have a strong why, we'll do the things we don't want to do when we don't want to do them. Without that, we're kind of a wandering ship.
Right.
Right. Why is that the thing that'll get you up? Yeah.
Number 5, comment please on the willingness, or as you say, being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Growth happens where we're uncomfortable. I know I was sharing, I've got a new ice plunge in my living room.
Yes.
I was doing this 20 years ago, and so I'm familiar with it. A lot of great benefits, and still, to this day, some days it's a little easier than others. I got to get my mind wrapped around it, because that first 20 seconds at 36, 37 degrees is everything in my body says, get out of here. Even though I've done it over and over, I have confidence that I can. It's uncomfortable. It's one of the main reasons I do it. Besides all the physical and benefits, is that I'm choosing a time to be uncomfortable. See, we've developed our lives, all this technology, to be comfortable. I tell people, have an amazingly comfortable life, and then pick things in your life that are going to make you super uncomfortable. So you want to get your latte, you want to have a comfortable car.
Right.
That's awesome. Pick something where in your day, mentally and or physically, it's going to make you uncomfortable.
Because that's where growth comes from.
Yeah. And when we do that, we have to rally our resources to keep up-leveling our game. Okay, going for this bigger project. Got to bring more talent to it.
Sure. Concept number 6, the ability to receive feedback. That's a good one.
One of my favorites. So when I developed the A game, initially this wasn't in here. And then as I was thinking, I thought to myself, I'm missing something. You see, Mike, my whole athletic career, no one ever sat me down and said, Stephen, I'm going to just tell you something here. So setbacks and some failures is totally normal. And you need to be able to receive the feedback so you can get better. Never happened.
No coach, even a coach who's supposed to be giving you feedback?
And by the way, thousands of interview athletes from peewees to the top level of professional sports. I have not had one athlete. I'm sure there might have been some conversations yep, learn that first day of practice, had a class on it. Think about it. The very tool that gets you better, we have no training on it. Now it gets one step worse. If you think you shouldn't be making mistakes, and if you're hypercritical of yourself, now someone walks up, you're already internal in your head, you're not being self-compassionate, you're being hypercritical internally. Now coach walks over. Hey, I want to share. You can't even hear it.
No.
So regulating yourself, learning how to regulate yourself so you can get that feedback, understanding it's just feedback, it's not personal, understanding it's normal that we're going to have these setbacks. And then the last part is, And also, don't try to defend yourself when you're getting feedback. Don't try to
Don't be defensive.
explain it.
Right.
Just take it in. There may be an opportunity to have a conversation about it or not. And then here's the other thing. Not all feedback's true. Not all feedback is something you want to do. No one ever talks about that. Now, if it's your coach and your playing time, and you probably want to listen, but it's not necessarily always true, 100%.
And it's not a call to action, right? You don't
Right.
have to take action based on that.
So if you have a regulated nervous system, that means like, oh, I can hear it. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not going to get defensive. I'm not going to be hypercritical. Man, that's how we accelerate. But if we're beating ourselves up, we're internal that dialogue, and it makes it very hard to accelerate our learning.
Concept 7, I'd like you to comment on, regularly analyzing your performance.
Yeah. One of the things I do with all my athletes and executives is evaluate what is an A game performance. So I have them look at a poor performance and a top performance. And I have several, customized categories that I developed: mental states, internal dialogue. And we want to look at what are the differences. Number one is so we can get in that state. Number two, if we start faltering, we can correct it. Oh, my internal dialogue's shifting. My body language is changing. Oh, okay, got tools for it. But we got to know, what's it take to be in our A game?
Right.
What's it actually take? And so that's the general analysis. Then we want to evaluate with all my professional and junior athletes. After a practice or a performance, we go through what went well, effort and result. What were the challenge? Effort and results. What tools do you have to correct that? Very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Number 8, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, focusing on progress instead of perfection.
Yes. Another simple tool, and I'm going to add the 1% better. Thinking about, can I get 1% better, right? That adds momentum, that adds motivation. And perfection is the killer of advancement. Because once again, we get hypercritical. Sympathetic nervous system fires off. Cortisol goes up. It's hard to learn. It's hard to change. We start beating ourselves up.
Right.
So we want to go, God, what went well? Oh, okay. Can I get 1% better? I had some progress. Being honest. Right? The progress could simply be, I went to practice today. I didn't quit. Because it could have been so challenging out there. You can't even see it.
Sure.
So you go, okay. I showed up when I had a shitty practice, and I got through it. All right.
It's progress.
Progress.
Yeah. Excellent. A couple more here. Number 9, knowing how, and this is the subject of your book, of course, knowing how to manage and perform with time.
Yeah, I'll just switch it to perform. It's understanding. So, and as an athlete, and as all of us, time is our most valuable asset. The most important thing is that it's like back to the dash. We have a beginning in our athletic career, and we've got an end, and it is not long. Even if you are at the top of your sport, when you're done playing that sport, you will have more life left than what you had in that sport, right? So time is very important. My nutrition, my exercise, my training, my schoolwork, or if it's the arts, is to know that you've got to plan it. Once again, the time's on your side, and that you're utilizing it most effectively. You're present in the moment, intentional, aware, positive relationship. You have to learn how to schedule and know time is the most important asset I have to maximize my ability.
And finally, my favorite, a term that you use a lot, being self-compassionate.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
It's just taking care of yourself like a good friend, When things aren't going down, you're not beating yourself up. You're in your corner. You're taking care of yourself. It's not letting yourself off the hook. A lot of people think, no, it's not. It's taking care of yourself. Being there for you, the most important person on the planet, you. Calming your nervous system. Going through the tools and techniques of self-compassion. And that you don't beat yourself up. That you're there like a good friend or a good coach.
Excellent.